Greetings, dear chess fans and experts. This is FIDE Master Max Omariev with you. Today we'll take a look at how Levon Aronian played with the sick Magnus Carlsen in the final round of the London Chess Classic 2017.
Clearly Magnus is a little bit sick and surely this really disrupts his play.
There was nothing serious with Magnus at the time. He just had a cold.
Yeah, you saw it happen. So.
But you have to admit that if you got a cold, have a fever and a runny nose, you'll play much worse than when you're in optimal condition. Let's take a look at how Magnus's play was affected by the sickness and whether it had an impact on the final result. Prior to that, Levon could not win a single game. And of course he wanted to win at least one, and it would have been doubly nice to beat the world champion. All the more so because the score of individual encounters was not in Levon's favor. He wanted to improve his stats a little bit, and let's see if he managed to do it or not. Magnus decides to go creative again. In that tournament, all his openings were non-standard. Queen moves to b6 already on the fourth move. Bishop moves to c5, attacking the knight. Of course, we can't take the knight because bishop hits f2, so Levon protects the knight. He plays e3, d5, and queen g4. They bring out their queens very early in the game. He just attacks the g7 pawn. And here Magnus plays too brazenly, I would say. Bishop f8. He just takes the bishop back to protect his pawn. He could have played king f8 to protect it, or even g6. The move bishop f8 is a loss of tempo. You should develop your pieces in the opening and not go back and forth. So Levon gets a nicer position here. He has the advantage in development, but Magnus has a strong pawn center. Queens exchange. The structure is a bit messed up, but black opens up the a-file. Knight b3. Knight c6. Bishop d2. Development. Magnus fixes the pawn on d5 and white attacks it. a4 is fixing those weak pawns, and also he wants to move the knight to b5. Castles. Knight b5. So Magnus decides to destroy this knight, but he should have chilled out a bit and played bishop b8, temporarily retreating, reflecting all threats. Here, of course, white is a bit better, but black's position is strong. After bishop b5, black's position gradually begins to creak at the seams. Here it becomes obvious that Magnus is unwell. He plays something unusual for himself. By the 15th move, you can say that he's got a double position. He exchanges the h-pawn, but it doesn't really give him anything. He has to play e4. The d4 square already got weakened, although there was certainly a move knight g6, but there was also disadvantages. After e4, Levon plays boldly knight g5. It's obvious that he wants to win. Knight g6, rook a7. White's pieces are coming from all sides. Queen b8, bishop d4. The b6 pawn hangs. Here Levon exchanges bishops and straightens out black's pawn structure. It seems that this move is completely disadvantageous for white, but it has some intentions. c4. He just wants to tear up the whole black pawn center. Knight e7, cd, knight c8. Magnus doesn't want to win back this pawn anymore. Well, because if we play knight d5, we can already take the pawn on e4. So he decides to play knight c8. On rook a4, knight b6, he drives the rook away. Knight c4, so after all that, the knight comes to d6. It made such a spin. Knight b6, c4, and return to d6. At the same time, he gives up the second pawn. Now white just has two extra pawns and of course a very good position. At this point, everyone already thought that Magnus would soon fall. But he continued to resist. Rook e8, rook c7, attacking the f7 pawn. There are already threats here, like take this pawn and play bishop e6. Say if black plays rook e5, we take the f7 pawn, then we move bishop to e6, and here's black's position, it's just lost. We take another pawn on b7 and too many pawns left for white. Black can, of course, give up the rook for the bishop, but there's still too many pawns. We can also take b7 or move the e-pawn forward. In general, this position would be lost. Therefore, Magnus plays king f8, so that after all these options, bishop e6 is already without a pin. King has already left the g8 square, and there's no pin. And here, Levon relaxed. He had a lot of time, but he didn't use it, and literally made the move b6 in a minute and a half. The move is logical. We fix the pawn on b7 and just plan to capture it in the future. Well, the b-pawn is about to be promoted to queen. But Levon missed something. Now you, my dear friend, need to pause the video and find the strongest solution for Magnus Carlsen, which Levon Aronian didn't see. I hope you were able to play as a world champion. Well, a sick world champion. Namely Rook e5. The meaning of the move is that we attack the knight. There's nowhere to retreat. So either f4 should be played here. Here we can take ef, take the e3 pawn. Here black already takes over. Because we can, for example, play rook b3 here, the b2 pawn hangs, and the b6 pawn is also in danger. Everything is in danger. All in all, it was not favorable for white either, especially since Levon had already determined to win, and here he sacrifices a piece, plays knight e6 check. It's very combative. He just wants to smash Magnus Carlsen on the board because Magnus is really cocky. He plays some weird openings, gives up 2 pawns, and even being sick manages to create problems. Knight e8. Removes rook from c7, rook d7, rook a5. Here we have a critical moment in the game. For Levon, that knight blunder took the wind out of his sails. He absolutely did not expect this and still cannot come to his senses. Here he just had to give up his rook for 2 knights. It's a good exchange. Play rook takes d6, take the knight, and here play e7, and just make the draw. Here's the move bishop c8. It destroys the last pawns on the queen's wing. We take e4, but this position is drawish because black only has 1 pawn left. The position is absolutely equal, but he got carried away. He played b4, and this move is no good at all. Rook d5 followed, and now there's no capture on d6. Rook a1. Levon wants to invade the 8th rank and just deliver a corridor mate, but that's a bluff. Rook b5. Magnus starts hunting for pawns. He takes one, protects the knight. He takes another pawn. He starts capturing everything. In the end, white only has a pawn for the knight, but it's not enough. White's position is already difficult, but Levon continues to resist. He finds an interesting plan to checkmate the black king. Rook a1. The rook goes to h1 and just wants to deliver mate on h8. Rook b5 is a defense. The point is that if I took rook h1 is played here, then you can just play king g8 and now there's no move bishop h5 for white. He had this idea, bishop h5, bishop f7, but now black has 2 rooks hitting h5, so there's no move bishop h5. Actually, that was the point of rook b5, so Levon decides to attack the rook, but rook b2 follows. Magnus changes tactics and now ties to the pawn on the f2 square. Here Levon realizes that it's useless to defend this pawn, because if you play rook f1, the knight f6 forking rook and bishop will follow, so he realizes that he has to connect everything to the attack. And here the goalkeeper joins the attack in the last moments of the match. King h3, king joins the attack. Rook f2, king h4, rook h2 check, and it turns out that there's no move king g5 because here the king gets mated. We could play rook b5 and rook h6 mate, for example. There's no need to storm, therefore bishop h3 follows. g5. Magnus distracts the king from protecting the bishop. And Levon moves his king to the g6 square. It seems that this is the end. White has no knights left, but the cunning Levon keeps setting traps. He plays e7 and rook takes d6. It turns out that if we take the rook, then there's such a mate. Rook a8 and on knight e8, rook takes e8. Beautiful. But Magnus, even being sick of course, couldn't blunder that and played rook h7. And after this move, Levon understood that the resistance is useless and admitted his defeat. But the thing is that white now just gets mated, or he'll have to give up his rook. Alright, for example, what do we do here? Say we play rook a8 attacking the knight, then black plays rook g7 check and king f7 to keep the knight safe. This white rook hangs. If we move the rook somewhere, then black delivers such a checkmate. Knight f6 and rook g6. In the end, Magnus clinched the final prize in the overall Grand Chess Tour. It was a well-deserved victory. And I thank you for your attention. Friends, please hit the like if you enjoyed this game, if you like the way Levon creatively tried to win at all costs. Also, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell to keep up to date with all our latest videos. Check our Telegram channel and Instagram where we post only the latest news in the world of chess. Keep playing and studying chess, and I'll see you soon.